Good afternoon. I'm coming to you live from my classroom today. I wanted to go over what we've been doing in math. We have started talking about fractions, and what we've done just recently is kind of naming fractions and unit fractions and looking at pictures that have things shaded in them and being able to name the parts shaded over the parts that were not shaded, or the total parts that we had. And so today we got a little bit further into fractions, and these will be the two things that we're really going to cover this 9 weeks with fractions. And this is pretty much fractions on a number line today. All of your children were in class made the fraction strips that you see before you here. They look one of two ways, and they could have some more information on them today. But these are useful tonight in homework. And I'm going to show you some of what we did in class today using these to kind of help you through homework tonight, and talk about the number lines that we drew today that go along with this. So I hope this is a helpful video for you. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to use my thirds with my whole, and kind of give you some background information about things that we talked about today. So we laid these out today and looked at them very closely and came to the conclusion that one whole is the same thing as these thirds, except for it takes 3 of them to make the whole. And the kids were able to look at that and be able to accomplish that this would be 1/3, this would be 2/3, and this would be 3/3 to make up that one whole. We talked about the fact that when we see 3/3, we know that equals 1. This is the same thing as 1. And so the kids are able to talk about that now. They know that when they see the denominator and the numerator the same like that, that means 1. We did not move beyond that. That is as far as we went with that. We will get into that a little bit, more of that a little bit later, but we wanted them to just be able to recognize that 3/3 was actually the same thing as 1. And so we did that by comparing these two. Now, something that we did with this was that we made number lines using this. I took the whole away, and we used thirds, and we traced our fraction strip and turned it into a number line by making this end our 0 point and making this end down here, and mine doesn't fit on my board, making this end our 1 point, our 1 place. So these are the whole numbers that we're dealing with, is 1 and 0, and we're working in between 1 and 0, and we're talking about the fact that we can divide up one whole into 3 equal parts. The next thing we talked about in order to get the number line to look correctly was that anything under the 0 would be 0/3 in this case. And anything under the 1, because we know that 1 is the same thing as 3/3, would be 3/3 in this case. Okay? And that was the next step that we kind of took, because that was the easy things that we could do. Next, we had to decide where to put spots on the number line so we could number this number line. And what I told the kids to do is kind of look at their fraction strip and see where they made creases in their fraction strip, and use that as a guide to help them figure out where to put their other fractions that are going to come in between 0/3 and 3/3. And so at that time, once we've gotten those written in, we can then name this 1/3, because that's only 1/3 of what we've got as a whole. And this would be 2/3 of what we have that's a whole. And then of course we make it to the 3/3 here. And that's some of the homework they'll do tonight is simply making a number line. And it's going to be using that, just like that, to do that one simple step, that one simple thing. And we're just being able to recognize that this is the order that the fractions come in on a number line, and that this is the places that we would find them in between 0 and 1. Okay, another thing that we did using this, clear that board, and I'm going to go with the fourths here on this case, we talked about if we had a candy bar or a ribbon or anything like that that we needed to divide up amongst our friends and ourselves. And again, we would make a number line with it. So we would draw our line out, making this our 1 place, making this end our 0 place. Okay, and when we number that off, of course, this is going to be 0/4 because we don't have anything yet. And we know that to get to 1 whole, we have to have 4 fourths. Okay? And so it's just that simple. You just kind of fill those two things in. Again, we talked about having the creases as our places to mark. And we did talk about that sometimes on our homework, the spots that we're going to be using are smaller. And so what we would do is just kind of eyeball where they would go and kind of give it, make sure that they're even and kind of give it our best guess. And that, you know, at our best guess, we can't get things too wrong. But that, that way it's kind of evened out and we can see the difference in each one and that they're all about the same. Some of us are not doing real good with the eyeballing, so you may have to see if you can help them come up with a way that they can better even out what they're doing. But when we were drawing on our desk today, this was the easiest way to do it. And so this was one of the things that we did. I'll go through one of the problems that they did on their exit slip today to kind of show you what I'm talking about when they don't match. And then again, we number our number line here. Okay, and then it might ask us questions like, how many fourths does each person get? Well, each person is going to get 1/4. How much is each person of the candy bar they're going to get? They're each going to get 1/4. Okay, so that we kind of answer questions involving our number lines at that point. Now, I'll kind of show you what I'm talking about with the number bonds and with it not actually matching up necessarily. Sorry, I don't have my nifty little holder tonight, but I do have a paper we can use, and I'll turn it back this direction. So this is kind of one of the things we did today. Got this off of Engaged New York, and this is where we learned our lesson from today. And so just another resource that's usable, and you're welcome to go find things there as well. This is the first problem. This has to do with the number bond. This is a fraction strip they want them to work on, and this is the number line they want them to use. So we're going to draw a number bond for the fractional unit, which the fractional units here is sixths. And we're going to partition the fraction strip, which means we're going to break it down into parts, and draw and label the fractions on the number line. And we're going to be sure to label the fractions at 0 and at 1 as well. So, since we're working in sixths, we've talked about drawing this off. I usually do this in thirds. The kids kind of watch me do that today first when I'm using sixths, and then I go back and half those just to kind of get an even thing. And like I said, we eyeball it because there's no way to put this the fraction strip up here and it even out perfectly and us be able to use it because the fraction strips are much larger than the actual picture here. So it's a little more difficult. When they want you to label the fraction strips after you've partitioned them, they want you to write in 1/6 for each part so that you can see that each part of that fraction strip is only 1/6 of the strip. Okay? And then we talked about today as we did these that what we're going to do to help our number line out is to go ahead and where we're drawing off these, we're putting a line underneath it on the number line so that we can number those off in just a few minutes. And so after we've done that, we can go and label our number line. This again would start out as 0/6, and our one place would be 6/6. And then we would number off 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6. Okay? That's all they want to see there. We're not marking anything on it. We're not doing anything else with the number line or the fraction strip. That's all they want to see. Then on the number bond, they want it to mimic the fraction strip, except it has little bubbles. So this would be 1/6 of it. But you have to have all 6 of them to make a whole, which is what this is. So that's 3 of them. That would be 4, 5, and 6. And at that point, that problem is complete. You've done everything that they've asked you to do. So that's just one of the things that we did today. The other things we did were, as you can see, were just simply word problems where they had to work through. This is in fifths. We did that as a challenge today, not something that we'll necessarily see on a test. In third grade, we work generally in halves, thirds, fourths, sixths, and eighths. So that's why you will see your child with only those fraction strips, because those are the numbers that you most often see and that we work with in third grade. We do occasionally play around with fifths in class just to kind of get used to seeing something different, but not necessarily things that we're going to be using a lot. So I did explain to the students that they will see those other numbers later as they go through the rest of their math careers and learning those things. This is not extremely difficult. Probably the hardest part is eyeballing here and just kind of getting a feel for what you're doing and numbering these number lines and remembering that the numerator and the denominator matching is the same thing as 1. I hope this is helpful. If your child has any problems whatsoever with homework tonight, please feel free to email me so I can go over those tomorrow. And like I said, this is pretty much it for fractions for this 9 weeks. And you'll see some more later, I hope, because I know we're going to do equivalent fractions. And so you should see that later. But we just kind of get our feet wet right now. So again, let me know if there's any problems. And I hope this was a helpful video.